tell me why these toasting topics are important to the community.
Well, it's great because it really is an opportunity for them to understand more about our speakers and education as to what's going on in the community. It really are today issues that people are looking at.
And of course, today is, y'all chose education today because?
Well, it's the first day of school. Yes, but you know, we've wanted to have the Superintendent of Education, Ellen Weaver, speak to us. Matter of fact, I've been reaching out to her ever since she took office and got her on the books. We knew that that's hugely important. You know, one of the things anybody, when they're moving to a town or business is looking to relocate, that CEO is trying to find out about the education system, right? So it's perfect timing for her to come and speak to us. Obviously, we have an amazing system in the school systems, K through 12 here. And so we're really excited of what we do have at Anderson to offer. So we can always talk to that daily. But we're excited for her to come and tell us what she sees as the future for K through 12 for the state of South Carolina.
Talking about timing, this is a big anniversary year for the Chamber. Remind people about that.
Yes, 120 years. April 6, 1903 was when we started. And so we're excited for this to be our 120th year. And we purchased the building this year. It was so exciting. The board, we got together and they talked while we were looking at it. And they said, I said, you should say we purchased a building for our 120th. And they did. So it's really exciting to have the momentum we have with our business community. The economy is very bright in Anderson, and so education is a piece of that. But we're excited to have opportunities to bring good speakers like this, great speakers from our state, to come and bring people up to date on what they see as the future and what that looks like. So we're excited about having her here today, and we're excited about our 120th year. It's good to have, we have over 100 that are going to be here this morning, so that's exciting.
You know, the Chamber has been a big part of this community for a really long time, and I've been blessed to be on the board now for quite a few years, and really seeing the Chamber grow and thrive into the organization that it is today does so much for the community here. This is a great example. I think we have over 100 people that are going to be in attendance here today at Anderson University to hear the State Superintendent of Education speak. So from a networking standpoint, from an educational and informational standpoint, I think the Chamber is one of the premier organizations around. We're very blessed to have the leadership that we have here.
And they work really closely with Anderson County and economic development and other things, right?
Absolutely. We have a great relationship. Pam Christopher sits on our Economic Development Advisory Board. She's also our DOT road commissioner. And so we have an excellent relationship with Pam and her team. And we're really fortunate from a county standpoint to be able to work closely with the Chamber of Commerce to help be able to make Anderson the special place that it is. Awesome.
Yeah, well, the first 6 months have definitely been full of listening and learning. This is a huge job with a lot of responsibility, but I think the most important lesson that I have learned is just the incredible people that we have working for us at the department, the amazing people who are out on the front lines in our education system, in the classroom, in our districts, and the passion and the energy that they bring to this job is an inspiration to me and the job that I'm doing.
And I've seen the list of priorities you're trying to work through. Is there anything that's urgent that you think you're going to get be done quickly?
Literacy is the #1 priority. Everything rests on being able to read well. And so we are so excited for the partnership that we've developed with the governor, with the General Assembly, and with partners out in the districts to fully align education in South Carolina with the science of reading. This is the brain science that we now know is how children learn how to read. We see this type of activity paying huge dividends for students in other states. It's working here in South Carolina where we're trying it, and so we're taking that statewide.
We're so excited to have all of you with us today. Thank you for making it a priority to come to Toast and Topics program. We are really excited to have our speaker with us today. We've worked on getting our superintendent with us for quite a while, and we're so excited that she's joining us today. We're thrilled to hear what you have to bring to us. So I would also like to thank Anderson University. They are our sponsor today, and we appreciate them sponsoring our program. They're one of our great partners, and we appreciate them greatly. I would also like to recognize our board members that are with us today. Holly Harrell, if you'll stand. Thank you. Julio Hernandez. Thank you. Brett Justice. Kyle Newton. Amanda Taylor. And John Wright Jr. thank them for all they do for us. We really work together on what the program should be and make a business topics that are important to all of you. Additional community members that I need to recognize. Alan Sims, is he here with us? City Administrator for Belton, right back there. Thank you, Alan. With the City of Belton also, Eleanor Dorn, Mayor Dorn. And then John Wright Jr. is on Anderson County Council also again. Kyle Newton is on Anderson City Council. And then also we have Louis Martinez with Anderson City Council. Louis, where are you? Thank you. Logan Kipling is here with us from Senator Lindsey Graham's office. Thank you, Logan. South Carolina Representative Ann Thayer is here with us. And we have also South Carolina Representative Don Chapman and Jay West with us. So glad to have y'all. Additionally, from U.S. Congressman Jeff Duncan's office, Rick Atkins is here with us. Does a lot for us. Where are you, Rick? Thank you, Rick. Appreciate you. All of these people do so much for us day in and day out, and we really appreciate that. Also, from our Anderson County Superintendent side, obviously we have Brenda Kelly with us from Anderson District 5 and Kathy Hipp from Anderson School District 3. Thank you guys for being here. And I don't want to be remiss, we have before, and I don't want to do that. So I want to also call out, and also Holly Harrell again, she's on our board, but she's the director of Anderson Career and Technology Center for Districts 1 and 2. And I believe Bob Couch is with us, which is the past executive director for Anderson Institute of Technology. And then let me go through the people that we have with us as well. Tiffany Estes, the executive director of Anderson Institute of Technology. Thank you for being with us here today. And then we're excited to have some of our board of trustees with us from Anderson School District 5. Thank y'all for being here with us, and we have been remiss in missing you sometimes, so I made sure. Cindy Burris is with us, Harold K. II, Sandra Leverett, Tommy Price, and Julie Usherwood. We're so excited to have you guys with us today. At this time, I'd like to call on my chairman of our board of directors, Kyle Newton, to give us our invocation and pledge.
Thank you, Pam. I was joking with Pam last week. The last two speakers we've had Attorney General Alan Wilson, and now we've got State Superintendent Ellen Weaver. So I'm just kind of wondering what next constitutional officer we'll have next month, you know? So he's kind of setting the bar high. As many of you know, I work with the school district, so I'm kind of doubly excited between that and my role as being the chair of the Chamber Board this year to have you become Superintendent Weaver. We definitely appreciate that. I was talking to some people today, you know, it's the first day of school, so it seems very timely. And so I've been so tied up here, like I haven't looked at my phone, I haven't checked messages. So as far as I know, like every bus was on time, like everything's going good today. So, but if you don't mind, if you'll please stand, I'll lead us in the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Father, thank you for all those who are gathered here this morning. Please look over our students across this county and across this state as they begin school. And please be with those who are tasked with teaching them, feeding them, and transporting them. Please help guide those who make policies that impact our children, and please help all of us gather to continue to nurture the bonds of our community. Please grant us wisdom so that we may make sound decisions in our professional lives, and grant us compassion as we work towards making this world better for all those who inhabit it. We ask that you bless this food for the nourishment of our bodies and our bodies to your service. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you'll look at your agenda, we have some upcoming events on the left side. Again, you know, you're always welcome to attend anything. The Chamber puts on some great events, such as this one. So, you know, please, if you can, make an effort to come out to other toasts and topics or networking events. This time, I'd like to invite Dr. Mark Butler up to say a few words. He is the Dean of the School of Education at Anderson University.
As Kyle said, I'm the Dean of the College of Education here at AU. It's a real privilege to serve in that position and to be a part of this wonderful community. I'm here to offer our welcome as a university. So on behalf of the administration and the faculty, staff, and over 4,000 students of Anderson University, we're so glad to welcome you to our campus. We wish it were a little sunnier for you today, but it is a really beautiful place. It's been a little quiet with camps ending and activity on campus being a little slower, but in a few weeks we'll welcome a new class of students here at AU. Over 1,000 students will join the Anderson University campus community, and that's not a small number for us. For those of you who've been around a while, you'll remember when AC, Anderson College, didn't have 1,000 total students, let alone 1,000 in a class. And that's a wonderful achievement for us, but it really is a mark of several things. The hard work and vision of a lot of folks across this campus, of course, but our partnerships across the Anderson community could not have done it without the collaboration and support of the larger Anderson community. So to the Chamber, we thank you for all the ways you've invested in Anderson University. And most importantly, the hand and provision of God as He's guided this institution. We're just eternally grateful for that blessing. So I want to point out quickly just a few groups of students who will be amongst those 1,000 students. First, amongst those new students will be our first ever members of our Anderson University football program. So we're really excited about that. Our first Anderson football team members will be joining us in the fall. They'll be on campus all year preparing, hitting each other, doing things that you do with football, to field a team in fall of 24. And you consider this your informal invitation. I know there will be more forthcoming. We'd love to have all of you at an AU Trojans game in the near future. Amongst those students, we also have a number of students who are joining our College of Engineering. That's a relatively new adventure for us academically. One of those sorts of programs that we feel benefits AU, but really will support the work of the larger community. And so we're really thrilled to see our College of Engineering grow. And the group of students I'm most passionate and excited about are our new students who are joining the College of Education. We'll have about 125 of those 1,000 students who will be entering into professions that will lead directly to classrooms in our community. And I know I'm amongst friends when I say they'll be a part of supporting everything we're trying to accomplish here in Anderson and beyond in the greater upstate area. The education that we're providing for young children across the state is the bedrock on which we're all going to grow. And so I'm really excited to have Superintendent Weaver here and Superintendent Kelly from Anderson District 5 because I know we're all part of that shared work. And so on behalf of the Anderson University community, welcome. We're so glad to have you here. And it's a great year. We're looking forward to a great year ahead. And I think I'm supposed to say go Trojans or something like that. So go Trojans.
Thank you so much. It is truly an honor to be before you, and I have had the blast of a time for the last 4 weeks. This is great. I am so excited to be superintendent of Anderson School District 5. It's an amazing district, and just as you were speaking of the partnership between Anderson University, we have an amazing partnership with wonderful teachers. Your program is an excellent program. We thank you for that. And Superintendent Weaver, we are so excited that you are here today to speak with us. So I want to thank you for your attendance today. This is a very special event. And thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and Anderson University for such a wonderful setup this morning. I am Brenda Kelly, and I have the great fortune of being superintendent of Anderson School District 5, and I am delighted to be introducing our guest this morning. Ellen Weaver was elected as South Carolina's 19th State Superintendent of Education on November 9, 2022. Born in Greenville, Ellen has spent her career as a passionate advocate for educational excellence and opportunity for every student in her beloved home state because she knows firsthand that a great education is the front door of the American dream. Ellen graduated from a great public school and earned her Bachelor of Arts in Political Science as well as her Master's in Educational Leadership from Bob Jones University. After graduation, she worked in Senator Jim DeMint's office for 12 years in a variety of roles, finishing her time as his state director. She founded Palmetto Promise Institute, a leading state public policy organization, in 2013. As president of Palmetto Promise, she worked tirelessly to improve the lives of her fellow South Carolinians with a specialized focus on education policy. Between her research at Palmetto Promise and her work as a member and chair of the South Carolina Education Oversight Committee, Ellen's deep experience in education policy in South Carolina gave her a relentless passion for enduring every child the hope and freedom found in excellent education. Ellen is focused on prioritizing the instruction of foundational skills, recruiting and retaining the best educators, and partnering with parents, as well as business and other community leaders to prepare students for their personal path to success. Superintendent Weaver, we thank you for being here this morning and welcome to Anderson.
Well, it is truly a joy to be here with you all today. I feel like anytime I'm in the upstate, I am with the home team. So as you mentioned, my family is actually all in Greenville. And you might ask how a good upstate girl ended up in Columbia. I ask myself that every single day. But it is such an incredible privilege to have been elected to serve in this role. I know if I start calling out names, I'm going to forget someone. But Brenda, thank you for that kind introduction. Pam, thank you for having me here today. To the folks at Anderson, thank you so much for hosting us in this incredible venue. I'm excited to come back and learn more about what you all are doing here to help provide great teachers to our state in South Carolina. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to Kathy. Kathy Hipp over in Anderson 3 has been a new friend, but a true friend in the short time that I have known her. She was one of the very first superintendents who extended her hand of fellowship to me and said, hey, let's talk and get to know each other and just share our common passion for ensuring that every child in our state gets a great education. And so Anderson, because of that, has a very, very special place in my heart. So it's a joy to be with you today. I love being able to speak to business groups because I truly believe that these are our schools. And because they are our schools, they are our responsibility. And I think that with anything in life, everything rises and falls on leadership. And the job of leaders, you all are leaders in your respective areas of industry and business. The job of leaders is to create a clear vision for where we are and where the future needs to be, and then to align resources around how we're going to get there. And so that's how I view my role as state superintendent. It's the same approach that I know you all take in your daily life, in your businesses, and your nonprofits that you are running. And I truly believe that that is the pathway that is going to, first of all, ensure that every child in our state has an excellent education, but also that South Carolina becomes the pride of the nation, because I truly believe we can and will be when we lead the way in this kind of collaborative, community-based model. And so I wanted to start today by asking, do we have any Johnny Cash fans in the crowd? Okay, come on, y'all. Is that it? Whoa, man, this is Anderson. What is going on here? Well, I think about Johnny Cash and his 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, you get it, automobile, right? He built it one piece at a time. And when I try to kind of set a foundation for how education governance and funding works, not just in South Carolina, but around the country, that automobile is a pretty good representation of that. Over years, there have been layers and layers of programs and processes and rules and regulations that just continually build upon each other. And so sometimes a lot of it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But it is where we are because that's how the car has been built. And so that's a great analogy to keep in mind as we look at kind of what Education 101 in South Carolina looks like. So I find that a lot of people are not very familiar with what the role of state superintendent is. What do I do versus what your local superintendents do, versus what is happening in the school level with your principals and your teachers. And so this is just a quick slide that shows there's a lot of complexity. So if you look at just the Department of Education, which is what this job of superintendent is constitutionally tasked with running, over 1,000 folks who work for us, about 600 of those are actually out in different bus shops. We have 42 bus shops around the state because South Carolina is actually the only state in the country that owns its bus system. And so that is owned and maintained by the state, which is not to say that there aren't some buses that may be owned by local districts, but the majority of our fleet is owned and maintained by the state. So about 600 of those people are bus mechanics who are out helping to maintain our bus fleet. We have over 1,200 schools, public schools, charter and public charter, or public and public charter. And then currently 85 districts when you count our traditional districts, our charter school districts, and then our governor's schools. And that number varies because over the years there have been especially rural districts that are continuing to consolidate. Barnwell is the latest of the consolidations that was just passed this last legislative session, and so we're in the process of working with them. And another great person from Anderson, Lee DeAndrea, is actually helping us kind of behind the scenes and facilitating all of the pieces that go into merging two incredibly complex districts. So that's kind of a broad picture of that. But then you have all these other education governance stakeholders. You have, of course, the federal government. We all are aware that there's a federal Department of Education. We have the General Assembly, which is responsible for the regulation and funding of our education system. We have a State Board of Education, which is constitutionally established, just like my role. And that State Board of Education is comprised of 17 different people. 16 of them are appointed by the 16 judicial circuits, and those appointments rotate between the various counties in each judicial circuit. And then there's one appointee from the governor. So we have that State Board of Education. And then, of course, we have our local superintendents, we have our local school boards, and we have the Education Oversight Committee, which I served on, which in some ways is a little bit functionally like maybe some school boards are in other states, or state boards, I should say, in other states. But the Education Oversight Committee is a legislative agency that oversees our state accountability system. And so it's meant to provide independent accountability and analysis of data, but they are not actually implementing any policies like the State Board of Education does. They don't have regulatory authority. And so if your head is kind of spinning at this point, that's fair. Those of us who work in education know that there's a lot of process and a lot of layers that you have to go through to figure out where the buck actually stops on a lot of things. But again, I see my role as superintendent as being someone who can help set a broad vision across all of these stakeholders in partnership with our folks who are on the front lines in the local districts. To help inform our General Assembly about the state of education, about what our needs are, and about how we are leveraging the resources that they invest to provide return on investment for our students and for our teachers. We were able to do that in a really tangible way. So somebody says, what is it like becoming superintendent of education? Well, it's kind of like jumping into a game of double dutch that has 14 ropes going simultaneously. I was inaugurated on January the 11th, so I'm coming up on 7 months on August 11th. And within 4 business days of having taken office, I was in front of the General Assembly presenting our agency budget. And as you will see on this next slide here, we have $8 billion that is under the control at some level of the State Department of Education. And I love to give business people just kind of a quick level set in terms of funding and data. I won't dwell on this a long time, but just so you can kind of see where our major funding sources are. We have about 713,000 students, $11.9 billion when you look at federal, state, and local. You'll notice that relative to the state and local share, federal is relatively small, under 10% of our total education budget. But I would dare say, and I think my superintendents might back me up on this, that there's a whole lot of regulation that we get along with that small percentage of our total funding. And then our public charter school districts are funded differently. We have about 39,000 of them, students in those districts, and you can kind of see relative to our traditional districts how they are funded. and relative kind of size and scope. Averages don't tell the entire story, so I'm always a little hesitant to give averages, but it just gives a benchmark that you can think about when thinking about how much we're spending. So if you look at the total revenue that we are spending on education in South Carolina, and this does not include local bond revenue, so this is not capital expenditures that we're looking at here. This is just the money from the feds, the state and local allocations. We're at about $16,700 per pupil if you average it out, and then $12,000 for a public charter. Now that does vary across districts, so I want to stress that that is the statewide average. And so when you look at spending here in Anderson, or I should say revenue per pupil here in Anderson, you have a range from almost 14,000 in Anderson 1 to just over 17,000 in Anderson 4. So you all are riding pretty close to the state average there in terms of revenue per pupil. We face a lot of challenges in education in South Carolina, and we know that we face those challenges. And one of the things that I had a strong passion for when I was serving on the Education Oversight Committee was using data as a tool, not as a hammer. I think that, in order for you to be successful in anything in life, you have to have an honest assessment of where you are in order to know what you have to do to get to where you need to be. And so it's always in that spirit that I talk about student achievement data in South Carolina. We know that we have challenges, but I truly believe that there are many highlights of areas that we are making incredible progress. And I think that there are a lot of strategies that we'll talk about that we can make even more progress going forward. But the picture is fairly sobering. We have 53% of students statewide in South Carolina that are not proficient in ELA. We have 61% of our students who are not proficient in math. And those are real challenges that I know you as employers face every day in looking for qualified people to hire for the jobs that you have to fill. Here is a slide that just shows briefly our graduation rate statewide. So we were about 83%, but sometimes you have to ask the hard questions of what does a graduation rate actually mean when by the ways that we measure college readiness and career readiness, you have far fewer students who are actually deemed to be college or career ready. Yet they're still graduating with a diploma. So there seems to be a disconnect in some of the ways that we look at data and measure data. Here in Anderson, you all are outperforming the state. And so again, I think that is a real highlight. You are basically average in terms of the revenue per pupil, and you all are outperforming what we see happening statewide. So I'll just let you look at that real quickly. And again, this is not any one particular district in Anderson. This is aggregating all 5 districts. But looking at the challenges that we face, I think we have an incredibly bright future in education in South Carolina. And I think it starts with the incredible people that I have been privileged to meet in not just the first 6 months on the job, but in the last 2 years traveling all over the state. We have people who are deeply committed to their job, who are highly competent and qualified in what they do. But I don't know that we are always spending our resources and aligning our resources in a way that supports the number one thing that matters, which is what's happening in that classroom. There is a lot of spending that happens in public education that is outside of that classroom practice. And so my question is always when I'm speaking with the General Assembly, how are we going to acknowledge that we have to fund buildings and buses? We have to, right? That's the infrastructure that we have to fund, and there's no way around that. But what are we doing to leverage resources around classroom practices that we know are effective? And I'm happy to report we actually had a banner year in the General Assembly. To Jay and Ann, our legislators who are here, actually back here we have another one as well. Their support of public education in the budget this year was absolutely unbelievable. We had a 7% increase in total recurring state funds year over year. And in both recurring and non-recurring funds, about $600 million in new spending. A small portion of that was for something that we are working on at the Department of Education, because I truly believe that, I believe you have to lead by example. And that when you are working with districts, as we at the State Department are tasked with doing, so we are currently running 2 districts, Allendale and Williamsburg, that have been taken over years ago for various reasons. When we're working with those districts, if we're asking them to get their house in order, we have to make sure that our house is in order at the State Department of Education as well. And so we are in the process of working to establish a top to bottom review process at the agency, systems review, personnel processes, budgets, to ensure that we are aligning our resources in a way that supports the work that is happening out on the front lines to create maximum impact. But there were a lot of other key priorities that were funded. Again, back to the people. We've got to support our teachers. Our teachers are exhausted. They are absolutely exhausted. And I think in many cases, we have asked them to be everything to these kids, and they just can't be. A teacher in a school can never replace a family. It can never replace a community. And so as I think about one of the things that we have to do to support our teachers, competitive pay is certainly high on that list of priorities. And so we were able to raise the minimum starting salary this year from $40,000 to $42,500. And Governor McMaster and leaders in the General Assembly and I have all committed ourselves to push to raise that to $50,000 in the next 3 to 4 years. So I want to again give credit to our legislative partners who are here today, who are helping us do this work. They have a strong passion for seeing education in South Carolina be great, and they have been incredible partners with us in terms of setting strategic priorities and direction and then getting the job done. Obviously, we have to have high quality instructional materials, early childhood. We increased the teacher supply line item so that teachers now get $350 for their classroom supplies at the beginning of the year, which is always a wonderful thing. We have an innovation grants fund and, a lot of other things that are really, really important. The capital funding line is for our very rural districts that frankly struggle because they simply don't have the tax base that a lot of our more urban districts do. So to help them with their facilities and capital improvements that they might not have the tax base to support. Again, school buses. I don't know if you all remember the bad years of, I think they call them euphemistically thermal incidents. Let's just call them bus fires, okay? When buses were literally catching on fire. And so thanks to the hard work of my predecessor and her partnership with the General Assembly, we are now back on the 15-year replacement cycle for all of our buses so that our students can get safely to and from school, which is just unbelievable. There was a news story out of Lexington about a month and a half ago. There was a bus that had students on it. And watching the video, it just, you just cringe. There's a fully loaded tanker truck that T-bones a school bus at a 4-way stop. And if it had been one of the old buses, I have to think there would have been fatalities. But thanks to the improvements and upgrades on our new buses, there were only minor injuries and every single student walked off that bus. And so when I think about the investment in buses, it's really about lives saved and the safety of our students. So I'm very thankful for the investment in that. But what I am most excited to talk to you about today is what we are doing around early literacy in South Carolina. Our General Assembly has provided the funds for us to invest in incredibly high quality professional development for our teachers, our K-3 teachers. Think back to your own education journey. What was the first thing you had to learn to do in school? You had to learn to read, because until you learn to read, you can't read to learn, which is what we are asking students to do as they progress through the education system. And when I think about the struggles that we face in schools, so many attention issues, discipline issues, I have to wonder how many of those can be traced back to students who have not been fully equipped with the tools that they need to do the work that we're asking them to do, and who are frustrated in that learning situation and frustrating their teachers in the process as well. And so we see incredible things happening in literacy around the country and even right here in South Carolina. So for many years, there was a reading war in colleges of higher education about, whole language, balanced literacy, phonics, like what's the right way to teach reading. I personally learned in a phonics-based model and have been a voracious reader my entire life. So I've never known what it's like to struggle to read. But I talk to so many people who that has been their journey in life. And what is so amazing about where we are in time and technology now is that we now have super advanced brain scans. We can actually look at what is happening in children's brains when they learn how to read. And we all come pre-wired to speak. Oral language is something that is instinctive in humanity, but we are not pre-wired to read. There are different sections of your brain that have to be connected through what we call explicit instruction. And so that's what this science of reading is all about. It's not a political agenda. It is not a philosophical thing. It is just looking at what do we know about brain science now, about how children learn how to read, and then how do we equip our teachers with the information that they need to know in order to understand how to meet their students where they are. And I will tell you, this has been one of the most meaningful things in my first 6 months on the job, is actually getting out into schools, especially some of we call them Palmetto literacy schools, which are schools in the lowest tier of proficiency in literacy. And they have been engaged in this training. It's called LETTERS training. And hearing them in their own words talk about how when they were first told they were going to be doing this training, they're like, are you kidding me? One more thing? I do not have the time or bandwidth for one more thing. But then as they got into the training, they were like, wait a second, why don't I know this already? Why didn't I learn this when I was going through my ed prep program? How have I missed this instruction? And then hearing how they start to incorporate that into their classroom practice, because what this does is allow them to see their students struggling, diagnose those struggles, and then provide the intervention that student needs. And so when I think about what we can do to turn around reading outcomes in South Carolina, it's all about building capacity and empowerment in that teacher. That teacher is the one who is making the difference in the lives of those kids in that classroom every single day. And so that's why I think this is the biggest bet, the most fundamental investment that we can make in South Carolina to turn the trajectory of education in our state and to lay a strong foundation for where we need to go for the future. But it's one thing to hear me talk about it. I'd like to actually have you hear a couple of teachers talk about it in their own voice. Maybe. We get tech help. There we go.
Say the word spot. Spot. Okay, let's tap it. Ready? Spot. Teaching, especially the last few, I have noticed like a huge, I don't feel like I'm giving these kids what they need. Like I'm teaching comprehension, and I always felt like pull small groups to give them what they need, but I'm like, I don't know how to teach them what they need. And so when I found out that we were getting letters training, I was absolutely ecstatic. Thinking through different ways that we had taught and that when kids weren't making progress and I didn't know what to do next. Like we were stuck at a reading level and I couldn't move them, And through letters, I'm able to do more. Like I'm able to do assessments that really target their skills. If I can see, oh, we're struggling with vowels, and I can work on vowel sounds, or we're not hearing the last sounding words, and I can work through more specific skills, and I know more about my students as readers and writers through using these strategies. I see them growing, and I see them reading, and I see them being successful, and they're excited about something. And I mean, even as we were sitting there doing it, like you could tell, like we have fun doing it. It's relationships with each other, and at the same time, they're learning to read, and that's going to, especially for a lot of these kids, that's going to change their lives.
Hi, I'm Heather Chambers, a second grade teacher at Loris Elementary. Letters has been a great way for me to become a stronger and more intentional teacher. I use the Letters Phonics Survey as well as the PAST assessment in order to create lessons to close the gaps with my students. The assessments help me to focus on exactly what phonemic awareness and phonics skills my students need. And the letters trainings have been really helpful for me because they allow me to see the strategies in action that I can implement in my classroom, both for my struggling students as well as my on and above grade level students. Letters has given me a lot of additional strategies that I can implement in both my small group and my whole group lessons. My students have shown so much more confidence in class, and I've often been told that they have at home as well. And I see them wanting to use those strategies in their independent reading and writing. Their smiles and excitement for learning has made this extra special.
So that's just a small clip of the real impact that is being had in classrooms across the state as we are getting teachers in our elementary schools this foundational literacy instruction that they need. And so as we wrap up, I want to leave you with just a few thoughts about where we need to go, where we can go together, building on this foundation. So we recently had a strategic planning session for my executive team and I'm an impatient person. I always wanted it done yesterday, so it's never done soon enough. And, you know, in many ways, I wish that, you know, we had been able to do the strategic planning when I first came in, but acknowledging that we were drowning when you first come into this job just because of the size and the scope of it. You know, I think 6 months in was really the right time to do it because we were able to have a much more deep and meaningful conversation about what our impact could look like. And so what I'm going to show you here is just what we came up with as our strategic plan for us as an executive team. Now, there is far more that the Department of Education does on a daily basis, but this is what we're really using as our North Star to help us keep first things first. And of course, our non-negotiable is that we want every child college, career, or military ready when they leave a South Carolina school. And acknowledging that we will never give up on any child or leave any child behind, we have to set a measurable target. What is a goal that we need to strive for that is time-bound and meaningful? And so we have said that by 2030, we want at least 75% of students at or above grade level in South Carolina. That's 6 years from now, and that is a massive goal. That is a massive goal. But I truly believe that working together to build a strong foundation in literacy, to address the learning loss that we have seen in math, to invite community engagement, and then support the mental health needs and challenges of our students, I truly believe that we can get there. Real quickly on those last two points, we are working with the department to develop something that we are calling CARE. CARE stands for Character and Resilience Education. And these are the shared civic virtues, the character traits the uniting principles that we as Americans, as South Carolinians can agree on. Things like commitment, courage, hard work, integrity, things that we all know our students have to have and that we want them to see. There are incredible curriculums, many different curriculums that are out there that support this type of work. I was recently honored to be able to visit the Medal of Honor Museum, which is on board the Yorktown in Charleston. I don't know if you all are aware, but we are actually designated by Congress in South Carolina as the home of the Congressional Medal of Honor Society. And so they have a curriculum that was developed by teachers for teachers, is in schools all over the country. It has not been widely deployed here in South Carolina, interestingly enough, but it's built on 6 core values, and those core values are illustrated in the amazing stories of our Medal of Honor recipients. I've been able to work with Superintendent Spearman, who is currently working with the John Maxwell Foundation, around his leadership curriculum, which again is just a wonderful resource that is already being deployed in a number of our schools, and they're seeing incredible results in terms of the culture change in their students, in their classroom, in their schools. Because, you know, we talked earlier about supporting teachers through increasing pay, and that is so important. They do need to be paid well and paid as professionals, and they certainly appreciate that. But what I hear more often than not from our teachers is that they need to feel like somebody has their back. They feel like the discipline in their classrooms is just out of control. And so I think that as we look ahead at how we turn that corner, how we help support them, I think building that character education, resiliency piece into our student instruction is a very important part of that. And then the community engagement piece. This is where you all come into the picture. I'm sure many of you are already very engaged in your local schools and local school districts, but I have a strong vision for what we can do as a state education agency to help build a platform that can mobilize an army of volunteers across the state. Many of our districts are already fantastic in engaging in this community engagement work, but frankly, some of them are just buried and don't have time. And so anything that we can do as an agency to help mobilize an army of volunteers to help raise the awareness of what we need in our schools. We need tutors. We need mentors. We need volunteers. And this has been done successfully in other states. When Jeb Bush was governor of Florida, he actually promoted release time for state employees to go an hour a week and read with students in local schools. And because of what he did, businesses stepped up and said, well, my employees are going to be part of that program too. So this is not something that is unique or has never been done before. So we've got a great template to draw from. And I'm excited about what the future can hold in terms of really, again, engaging in our responsibility for our schools and letting our teachers and our principals and our administrators know that we have their backs. I'll close with a story that is, I think, just very meaningful to us as South Carolinians. Mary McLeod Bethune grew up in Sumter County, South Carolina, in a tiny town called Maysville. And I actually just got to go to Maysville for the annual festival that celebrates her and her legacy there in Sumter County. But she was born in the late 1800s to parents who had formerly been enslaved. No one in her family read. Her mother took in laundry to help support the family, and so Mary would help her mother deliver the laundry and would play with the children in the home when they were out and about on their delivery rounds. Well, one day she was playing with a little girl, and Mary picked up a book, and the little girl said, "Put that down, you can't read." And Mary said she determined in her heart at that moment that no one was ever going to be able to say that to her again. And so thankfully there was a great little Presbyterian mission school in Maysville at the time where Mary got enrolled. She learned how to read, and she had a teacher's heart from the very beginning. She would go home in the evening and teach her family what she was learning in school that day. She went off to Moody Bible Institute, came back to South Carolina, taught in Sumter County. Her family journey took her to Florida, and with $1.50 in her pocket, she started a school for little girls just like her who had not been given the opportunity of an education. They made their desks and their chairs out of crates. They used ink that was made by pressing berries. But today, Mary's legacy still lives on in the lives of the families that she has changed in Bethune-Cookman University, which bears her name as a historically black college and university there in Florida. She now has a statue in Statuary Hall in Congress for the state of Florida for the pioneering work that she did in education there. We also have a beautiful picture of her outside the South Carolina House in our own state house here in Columbia. But when I think about her and the power of her life as an education entrepreneur, and her famous quote is, "The whole world opened to me when I learned to read," I think about reading as really the foundation of freedom and opportunity. And it was in her time, and it still is in ours. When I think about how we bind up so many of the animosities and social ills that we see around us, I truly believe that it's through the power of a great education. And we have such a strong example of our twin mottos here in South Carolina. While I breathe, I hope, and prepared in mind and resources. Our mottos are hope-fueled hard work. And that's what Mary McLeod Bethune and her life represent. And that's why everywhere I go in a school, I make sure that they know the story of Mary McLeod Bethune and the legacy that we are of hers here in South Carolina. So if you'd like to learn more about our volunteer opportunity, I'd welcome you to visit our website. We are, again, in the very early stages of building this out, but would welcome you to go there, learn more, sign up, and as we have more information available, we'll be sure that we push that out to you. But again, I just want to end by saying thank you so much for having me here today. Thank you for everything that you do to support education in your community. And I truly believe that through the power of communities like the folks sitting in this room, our education future in South Carolina has never been brighter. So thank you again.
We're so excited to have you with us today, and I think we have a room for a couple of questions. Yes, sir. Mr. King.
Morning, Ellen. I'm David King.
Yes, it's been a long time. David, how are you?
I'm doing well, and thank you for being with us this morning. I want to reflect back perhaps on your Johnny Cash automobile, and give you a little background before I ask you a question. Back in the 1900s, when I was in the banking business, I attempted through this chamber and through Lee Royce, who was then the president of Anderson University, to introduce financial literacy into the school districts in Anderson County. For 2 years, we attempted, and I had from the American Banking Association lesson plans for a financial literacy curriculum that lasted, I think it would have been about 6 weeks, or maybe 20 or 30 minutes a session. That still hasn't happened, and I understand certainly the importance of being able to read at a young age. But here's my question. Before we graduate students, if they don't have a background in financial literacy, business folks in this community are, that's what students need in addition to reading and math capabilities. They need to understand financial literacy, in my opinion.
Well, and not only in your opinion, so you will be glad to know that the General Assembly recently passed a graduation requirement for a half-credit financial literacy course. So we are in the process of that now being rolled out in our schools. So thank you for your work that helped form the foundation, because that is something that I know many of us have thought about for years, is that you're exactly right. That's a skill you have to be ready to graduate. So, well, yes, sir.
Yes. A question about over the last 2 years with the pandemic and everything and the loss of learning abilities from the students, what kind of strategies do you have to close that gap?
That's a great question. I think that the literacy work is certainly part of that. We also had money in the budget this year for high intensity tutoring. The research is really showing that small group instruction, whether it's one-on-one or in a group of 2 to 5 students, is how you close gaps, because you can really address those gaps in a meaningful and personalized way. So those are two things that I think are very concrete things that we can do. And this is probably opening a little bit of a can of worms here, but the ability of AI and a lot of the tools that has opened up for us to use in the classroom can help us address some of the customization of knowing what students don't know and really helping a teacher diagnose and then direct instruction to specifically what that student isn't getting, because they may have gotten a couple of pieces over here, but they're missing this core concept over here. And so those tools, when used in that way, can actually help a teacher, a real teacher, right, an in-person teacher, diagnose. And so I never want to suggest that technology is going to solve all our problems. I think if anything, we have seen that technology has probably far more unintended consequences. But the fact is that it's here now. And so, we have to figure out how to work with it, how to harness it in a way that is helpful and productive. And that is one way that I have seen that it can actually help support the actual teacher in the classroom in delivering instruction. Yes, sir.
So as an active, growing state and an attractive place for people to relocate to, what does that look like from the K through 12 from a population standpoint? What should our kids or our parents be expecting in the next 10 to 15 years?
That's a great question, and you're right. We are a high-growth state, a very attractive place to live, and that's why I'm so passionate about this foundational skills piece, because I feel like if we can form a strong foundation for our education system with these foundational skills, then all the wonderful things that attract people to a school, whether that's their fine arts program or their sports program or whatever, all the other extracurricular things that take the academic side of school to the next level. I think that it's that core foundation that we really have to focus on as a state. One of the things that is most challenging for me in my role is there's so much to do, and I get to the end of the day sometimes I'm like, what did I just spend the day doing? Like, I started out with this to-do list of like the best intentions of everything I was going to get done, and I've maybe checked half a box. And so I think that we have got to, it's a football strategy, focus on the fundamentals, right? And so that's the message that I'm going to be spreading across the state, and hopefully in support of the great work that our districts are doing. We've got to simplify, and focus on the fundamentals.
Well, I want to thank you. Again, give her a hand. She did a great job. Before you walk away,
Okay.
I want to give you a hug from business. How about that? We appreciate everything you're doing.
I need those hugs. They keep me going.
Well, we have no doubt that you're going to meet the goals you have placed and probably surpass those.
Thank you.
And I love it how you're working together collectively with our teachers and obviously our boards too, board of trustees, and people that are really engaged in the business community on what we need to do to continue to make sure our students are meeting the goals that they need to and are being able to be career ready. I would like to ask everybody in education, where you're on the board of trustees, you're in education, even from post-secondary, would you please stand so we can acknowledge y'all? Please just stand together. Let's give them a hand. You do so much to really sculpt what the future is for us. You help us create that future, and you teach them. And we're so humbled by what you do, and thank you so very much, because if we didn't have your leadership, we wouldn't have such a strong future in Anderson County. And I thank each of you for what you do, truly. Today, I hope you go away with that, just understanding, and I love when she talked about care, because it is us working together collectively to make sure we show that care and really take a hold and harness what we can to make sure we're giving those students opportunities to exceed and excel. Today, just want to ask you again, you all had that agenda please look at the events we've got coming up. We're working on a great speaker for next month. We just got to work out a couple more things, and then we'll be announcing that. I would encourage you guys to go online and make your reservations, because we have to commit a certain number for food, and we don't ever want to turn anybody away. So I would like to ask you to please do that if you can. It helps us and it helps AU to make those numbers correct. So I appreciate that so much. And I was remiss in one thing. Danielle Gibbs is here with us. Danielle. So Danielle is with Senator Tim Scott's office, and I left her off the list. I'm so sorry. The additions added at the last, I just didn't have that on the list. So thank you for what you do too. We really appreciate all our legislators, everything you're doing, and the commitment you make daily. I know that it's tough. I'm sure, like Superintendent Weaver, I'm sure in educators, you get people that are going to tell you the things they think that you should do better. It's easy for someone to say that on the other side, right? But you guys are doing phenomenal things. Thank you for taking up the leadership and moving us forward throughout the state, and I greatly appreciate it. You guys go out, make someone's day, smile at them, and we appreciate you coming. We are your Anderson Area Chamber of Commerce.